Hi, I'm Tess,
Hi, I'm Sarah, and we are.
the Happy Edit Sisters. Happiness isn't just being happy, it's an embodied feeling that starts with how we approach life, our actions, and our mindset. Everyone has a range of emotions, and that's a good thing.
Join us as we dive into what it means to be happy and how we build a foundation for happiness through different lenses. Hello, Tess.
Hi, Sarah. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. We kind of meet at a little bit of a later time than normal, I think, aren't we? We normally meet at about 10 usually when we're recording these. So I normally come in kind of like, oh, I've just been to the gym. But yeah, I'm good. We went to see Aoife at a little Easter play this morning. So me and Dad went to go and see Aoife, and she did really well. She was a little bit nervous at first, so we went to kind of speak to her just before she kind of went on stage and stuff. And oh, she just smashed it. So yeah, I'm really good. How are you?
I'm very good. Just before we get into me, though, what part did she play in the Easter play?
So she played an apostle. Um, and
Okay.
so my dad said to her, like, which apostle are you playing? And she was like, I don't know, just one of the apostles. So she does not sure who she played. But she did a good job playing whichever one it was. Um, yeah, she loved it. There were lots of singing. So it was year three, which Aoife's in, and year four. And the year fours did the kind of speaking parts. And the year threes did the dressing up bits. So I think they got the best bits in the little robe that she had on. And um yeah, I think I shared a picture, didn't I? And she looks
You
very cute
did.
on it, doesn't she?
Adorable. She looks absolutely adorable. But yeah, when I was thinking about it earlier, I was like, why is she playing an apostle? It makes sense. It makes
Mm,
sense. Well,
yeah,
congratulations to Aoife.
yeah, yeah.
I'm doing well. I went for a nice long walk earlier this morning, so that was good just to get out and move. It's um between rain showers, I think. I think I made it out at the right time today because I'm looking out the window now and everything's clouding over. Our sun is going away. No surprise. It is
No,
March.
it's only going away for a couple of days because we're there on Sunday, and then it's going to be blue skies. It's going to be no rain. It's going to be no clouds.
Yeah, that's exactly what's gonna happen. We will see. We will see. Well, this is going out live the Monday, that sort of that first full day that you guys are here, right? And the whole idea is to do a Easter egg hunt outside. So fingers crossed, everyone, while you're listening to this, that we have that nice sun that we can do that.
Otherwise, we're going to have like sucky chocolate eggs. All right.
Yeah, the kids will eat it anyway, right? It's chocolate.
I don't know about the kids eating it.
So I am really excited for today's episode because we're going to go through different facts of our senses. Now, I spent some time sleuthing these facts on the internet over this last week, and some of them I was like, yeah, okay, I kind of knew that, but others I was like, whoa, that's so cool. I had no idea. So hopefully these facts that we bring you, that we're sharing with you today, you find really interesting as well, because I know that before we even hit record, we were looking at over them together. And we're like, wow. And they were like, okay, we have to start recording because these reactions should be live or should be
They are
recorded
very
at least.
cool. Yeah, yeah. I mean, they are very cool. Some of them. They are. When I was looking through them last night, I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that." Um, so I'm hoping that the listeners have like similar reactions as well, or they might already know all these things as well. Who
Yeah,
knows?
yeah, yeah. I mean, we might be the last ones to pick up on this stuff, like which is, fine. But we find them fascinating. So, if there's at least one that you find fascinating, let us know. At the end after, send us a message either on Instagram or put a comment in for the podcast and leave us a review about which is your favorite your favorite fact that you learned today. And yeah, let's dive straight in. So let's start with our sense of smell. So just to give everyone this background, we're talking about our five senses. So smell, sight, touch, taste, and hearing. I realize that there are
Mm.
other senses that we have, but we're going to focus on these main five senses.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. So one of the first facts that's really interesting is that people have approximately 10 million smell receptors in the cavity behind the nose. Um, something things say a nose, some things say a nose can smell more than 1 trillion different scents. How amazing is that that we can trillion different scents that we can smell?
Oh, I know. When I read that, I was like, is this like how much training do we have to do for this? Like, is this just like always going on and we just don't like we aren't receptive to it,
Mm,
or are we receptive to it and we just don't really identify it as, oh, all these different scents we're picking up
mm.
on. Because 1 trillion is a lot. And I mean, that's really, really cool. You know, we think about dogs having these amazing noses, like sense of smell. But I mean, they probably have a better sense of smell than that, but that seems pretty impressive to me. Us little dinky human noses.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know what's really interesting? It just come to me now as we're talking. So when I was pregnant with Cora, was it with Cora? No, it was with Aoife. And I had it with Cora, but it was more with Aoife that this happened. That so I was probably about 8 weeks pregnant, maybe. So like I weren't really showing or anything like that. And we went to a place called Butlins in the UK, which is like a holiday park, with Cora. And it was in about February time, I think. So it was quite damp. So the air was quite damp. And when I was pregnant the first time with Cora, my sense of smell was really increased. Like I could smell lots of different things, which is really common in pregnancy anyway, that like that sense of smell increases. But I could smell wet wood. So I could smell the dampness on trees and like the dampness on like fences and things like that. But to the point where it was a horrible smell to me. Like it wasn't like
Mhm.
a nice smell of being in the forest if it's a bit wet or a bit damp. It was this really strong, like overpowering smell where it literally made me shake. Like I'd like
Oof.
kind of have to shake my head to kind of like, oh, that smell. Um, and I just remember that for about maybe about 8 weeks of being pregnant, of like this
Yeah.
really intense wet wood smell.
Isn't that interesting? You know, the different hormones that we have in our body, like focusing this our senses in different ways. That's really, really fascinating. One another thing that we found is like when you're hungry, your sense of smell improves as well, right? So like depending on what's
Mm,
going on in your body, this is going to increase or decrease that those sense receptors and what how those signals are going up to the brain. And so that I
yeah,
mean it makes sense, right? That pregnancy would do the same thing. But it's
yeah,
just really interesting to me.
yeah,
I
yeah,
love that.
definitely. And when you said then about being hungry, so when you go into a supermarket, that they, quite often they have that bread smell, don't they? And I think they used to use like sprays. I'm sure they
Mm,
did at one point, so that people would smell that like the fresh cooked bread smell. Lots of supermarkets now
or
have
cookies.
areas. Yeah, or cookies. And lots of supermarkets now have areas, don't they, where they cook fresh bread and things like that on site and stuff. But that straight away makes you want, and you have to go right to the back of the store to get the bread. Um, so it's fascinating how they use the senses in like marketing and like different industries as well.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Like our sense of smell is actually really connected to our emotions and our memories as well. So, you know, when you're thinking about marketing, like they're gonna look at all of these things and go, okay, how can we connect this scent to, entice this person to do something that, oh, it makes them feel like they're home and they're cozy. Here's this fresh bread, right? Or like,
Mm,
oh, like I remember when my grandmother made me these homemade cookies. So I smell that and I'm like, oh, I want to go get those cookies because they remind me of my grandmother or something like that, right? And it is
yeah,
amazing. A, that it happens, and B, how we humans take advantage of those things to
definitely.
help ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I just thought then about obviously Michael, so my brother, your husband, how he, with him doing the brewery and things like that.
Hmm.
So brewing beer and, that's connected not only to taste, but the smell. And yeah, it'd be interesting. He's obviously not sat here right now, but it would be interesting if he does come, because I think he's going to come on to one of the podcasts maybe. And it'd be interesting to see what his thoughts were of whether that is connected to how people um experience that beer, whether they're more likely to buy that beer if it's a smell that then is connected to something that they've smelled before in childhood or,
Oh
things
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, 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 definitely. Yeah, we'll have to write that one down so we can ask him later.
We'll bank it. We'll put that. I'm just looking at our list here, and it's possible to smell scents in our dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't
Mm-hmm.
know that.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Because it's connected to your subconscious. It's like connected to those memories and whatnot. And so when you're dreaming, you can smell these scents and it can pull you more into that subconscious. It is, it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. And I also like the point here that scents smell better through your right nostril than through your left. This must be like that
Oh,
left brain, right brain sort of thing. I'm not really sure. I didn't look fully into that, but that would make sense to
oh.
me that, a certain side of your brain would be, more connected to these sort of things. Um,
So I wonder if we should try. Should
and
we try that now?
we could do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and see if the listeners want to give it a little go as well. Have you got a drink in near you?
I do. I do. I've got a green tea.
Should we give it a go? Which nostrils should we do first?
Okay, well, let's try the left nostril first, because that's going to be the supposedly the one that we don't smell as much through.
So all the listeners, if you've got something and you want to give this a go, we're gonna just kind of close our right nostril and we're gonna do our left. Yeah,
Yep. Okay. Oh yeah.
that you really can.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I'm a bit stuffed up too, and I'm still noticing the difference here.
Like
That's really
significantly, like
fascinating.
that is fascinating.
Hmm. Oh, cool. Okay, so if you guys try this one out yourselves,
Ah,
let us know if you could tell the difference or not, because yeah, both of us could. And that's really interesting. Huh, I'm gonna try that with
mm.
other things now.
I'm gonna try it with wine.
I was thinking oranges. We have a lot of oranges and they're really like the scent is really strong. And so yeah, I might try that. You guys could try it. We could try it with the girls when you guys come over next week. See if we could see the
Definitely.
difference.
Definitely. And we'll share if it's okay with Tess, we'll share this picture because I need to share this now on Instagram. So Tess sent us a picture of the biggest lemon you could ever possibly imagine. It was as big as Tess's head. So
Literally. I mean,
if
almost. My face.
so if
It's
Tess
as big as a
doesn't
baby's head.
mind, it is. It was huge. It was huge.
Yeah.
The kids' reaction when they seen that, they were like,
Yes. Yes. Yeah. We'll share it. We'll share it on the Instagram this week for sure. Because it's hilarious because of how big it is, and also it's just really cool.
definitely, definitely. So one of the other facts about smell that I thought was really interesting as well is that the human nose can detect smell of a single drop of perfume diluted in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. I mean, that's amazing, isn't it?
It really is. And once again, I'd love to know a little bit more about this fact. Is this someone that's really honed their sense of smell, or is this like the average person? you know? Um, because I mean, I
Mm.
think most of us would find it really difficult to have this experience because usually we don't have plain water that's the size of an Olympic swimming pool and a drop of perfume to try it out. But it would be really interesting to see like how they studied that.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Should we have a little think about sight, maybe? Things that we should.
Yes, yes. I
Yeah.
was just about to say that myself. So great minds, great minds. Um, so I think looking at the facts that we have of sight, one of the things that many of us probably know to an extent is that newborn babies are colorblind. I had known this, but what I hadn't realized was that your full color vision is fully developed by 4 months. So it takes 4 months for that sort of the detection of the brightness, intensity of colors to fully develop. And I knew that this was like, I knew that it was like a process, but I hadn't
Mm,
realized that it takes that much time for
yeah.
us to fully develop that ability to see colors.
Yeah. No, me neither. I knew that babies can't see more than like a very short distance, like a probably no more than a few inches maybe in front of the faces when they're first born. And that's why kind of they tend to just stare at the person feeding them.
Yeah.
Um, but I didn't realize it took that long for colour to develop.
Yeah. Yeah. How
That's so
fascinating.
interesting. That is
And
so
it makes
interesting.
sense that then throughout your childhood, if you're able to have, more connection to the color, how that could then affect you more moving forward. Um, yeah, I don't know. It would be interesting to look into more of the science behind that and to see like if you have
Mm.
more color, like what's the word I'm looking for? If you're see more color, more different types of colors at a younger age, if that affects like how you process color or how you like
Mm.
can perceive color in your adult life.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I wonder whether, like, culturally, then would it be different as well? Just thinking different cultures have different, are associated with different colours. So, in the UK, we wouldn't necessarily be associated, I wouldn't have thought, with very bright, kind of vibrant colours, but places in the Caribbean would be. So, does
Yeah.
that make a difference?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I have no idea. If anyone knows,
Interesting.
please let us know.
Yeah, how interesting. How interesting. This one's really interesting as well. And um, I don't know if it's because I've had a problem with my neck muscle over the last few months, which is ironically, it's caused by having my head slightly tilted to one side when I'm in sessions with people, just like a natural kind of position for me to go in would be maybe slightly tilted. So neck muscles and nerves are involved in seeing because eyes must correct each time you move your head, which is why neck injuries can cause visual difficulties. I mean, that's fascinating.
Yeah. And it makes sense, right? Like everything is connected. And if your head is having to move around and your eyes are having to constantly recorrect and adjust, and how amazing is it that our eyes can do that so quickly? Like
Mm,
you're scanning your surroundings, and with that scan, it's able to like pick up on these little details much faster than, say, most cameras would be able to. Um,
yeah,
and I just find that really really cool that we can do that, but also yeah, just like thinking about that in your neck health
yeah,
and how important it is to make sure that those muscles stay not just
yeah,
strong but also supple, like you're allowing them to relax, you're allowing them to move as much as they need to or they can.
yeah.
So much of our time is spent in front of screens these days. And so we're just kind of holding, maybe just like you said,
Yes.
maybe it's tilted, your head is tilted, or maybe you're hunching forward, right?
Mm,
And this can really affect not only like our neck itself, but also our shoulder, our back, and our vision. Um, and also like it's important not just that, but like to take your like every 20 minutes or so to make sure that you look out beyond your screen and looking at a distance so that the eyes, because the eyes are muscles, right? And so to be able to use those muscles as well and like send your vision out further so you're not just constantly
Mm,
looking at something that's so close to your face. So it's all
yeah.
connected.
Yeah, I remember going to the opticians and them saying that to me that look past your screen, like every 20 minutes or so, make sure that you keep looking past your screen so that because that really does affect your eyesight.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
And it's just as you're talking then, I really became much more aware actually of what I can see right now in front of me as well. And, actually as I'm looking at the screen at you, I can still see like not quite the door, but towards the door. So actually probably past where I'm sat, like to the side of me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I find that amazing, the fact that I can take that much peripheral vision in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I agree. And there's practices within yoga of like training and working the eye muscles. And so you're moving your arms in different ways, or you're moving your fingers in different ways without necessarily moving your head or moving your eyes and just focusing like how far
Mm,
can I see it? And the more you do it, right, because these muscles get stronger, they get better. You get like more of that distance
yeah,
back, which
yeah,
often we lose because we're focusing on screens so much. It's fascinating. Our bodies are freaking cool. That's all I have to say.
they are. They're very, very
I'm going to
good.
say that a lot throughout this session. One fact that I find really interesting is that we're talking about eye muscles and just like going on with what we were talking about. Because your eye muscles are constantly working, the movement can be compared like on a daily basis to walking your legs about 80 miles or 128 kilometers a day. That's crazy, right? And so if you think about if you're like looking at a screen or you're
Yeah.
looking at one thing for a long time, your eye muscles aren't working
Mm.
as they should. They're not getting those walks in, right? They're not getting their steps in. And so like taking it back to what we were talking about before, looking in the distance, like taking your gaze around you, looking at different things, like super important to get those eyes walking and moving so that they don't get tired and they don't get, weak because they're not being used.
Definitely, definitely. No wonder our eyes are tired by the end of the day.
Seriously. Yeah, it's like, okay, yeah,
Really?
no, right. My eyes want to sleep because they've walked 80 miles.
So now when I feel myself just kind of drifting, I'm like, I'm going to be really kind to myself and be like, yeah, you've worked hard.
Exactly. Exactly.
So the other sense is touch. So it'd be really interesting for us to kind of just explore that a little bit more as well and some fun facts about touch. So
Yes.
the largest organ in the body is the skin,
Hmm.
and the skin is responsible for the majority of our sense of touch, which is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think a lot of us don't think of skin as an organ, as, something that's like doing all these things for you. We kind of just think of it this outer layer of the body, but it's really impressive what our skin does. And
Yeah.
the skin receptors, right? They feel pressure, they feel temperature, like hot and cold, they feel vibration, they feel pain. And so like they're able to like perceive the surroundings really in a really fascinating and
Mm,
impressive manner. More so than I think we give credit. But the
yeah.
one thing that I really find fascinating about this is that we can't actually feel wetness.
Yeah, that's amazing. I never knew that.
Yeah, well, I learned this gosh, I don't know, maybe about a year ago. So Michael and I, my husband, Sarah's brother, we were talking about how like when the clothes were on the drying rack and like, he'd be like, "Oh, they're wet." And I'd say, "No, they're just cold." And so we were going back and forth like, how can you tell if they're wet or if they're cold? And so we looked it up and it was like, oh, we can't actually tell the difference. Like it like your body is like defines wetness or moisture from the pressure, from the temperature of the, the item or whatever it is. And that's where how it tells you, yes, it's wet or no, it's not. Um, and so when it's kind of
Mm.
in like either lightly damp or just cold, our body doesn't always know the difference. So one thing that I have found is it's helpful to like bring it up to my face because my face is much more receptive. And so I can feel like, oh no, that's cold or no, that is damp.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, we have those same conversations. Like, no, it's just cold because it's been there overnight. It's just cold. And then it's like, no, 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 it's wet. No, and I never knew that we were unable to feel wetness. This is a little bit that
Yeah,
kind of wants to stick my finger in my cup of tea and coffee and just be like, no, I can't.
I know,
I'm
right?
gonna
I
I'm
know,
gonna
I know.
gonna do it.
Yeah, it just kind of cold and like it like clings to it a little bit. I'm doing that too in my tea, by the way. My tea has
Yeah.
gone cold.
And there's a bit of me that kind of is now going, what would wetness feel like? I don't know.
Well, that's a really interesting thing, isn't it? Like when you take this time to kind of think about your senses, how you connect to them, and kind of really process, what does that mean to me? How does that really feel? Like we go through life so often in this just on auto drive. We're not even
Mm,
thinking about it. And when we're able to take that time to really pause and observe, we start noticing like, oh, well, this is how it feels for me, or this is how it doesn't, or I don't actually have any idea. And then you can take that time to,
yeah.
have that little bit of introspection, and, connect better with what your body is doing and what it is perceiving. And I think that that is just one of the really cool parts about like going through these facts, and learning more about the senses is you're able to think about, okay, how is this true for me, or and how is this working for me, right?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. It's about being more mindful, isn't it? Being in the moment, being more mindful of just slowing
Mm-hmm.
down and just noticing. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
noticing. I find this one really interesting as well. And in some ways, it makes me think about therapy and working maybe with trauma and things like that. So that pain isn't just a physical sensation, but it can also be a memory to protect the body from experiencing the acute damage from before. Pain is also one of the strongest memories we can have. And that really makes me think about kind of trauma and
Yeah, same.
the experiences that people have.
Yeah. Yeah. And how that is affecting your body in ways that you don't necessarily even realize, right? And whether that's a physical response or a mental response, both, right? And so like me, for example, just kind of thinking, and this isn't necessarily like a mental trauma, but it's definitely a trauma when I injured my back.
Mm.
Um, I herniated my disc, and couldn't move, and it was very painful. And like over many months, years, I have gotten a lot of my movement back, but I'm still not able to do everything. And there's definitely still movements that I do that like there's signals that get sent through to my brain saying, "Oh my gosh, don't do that." And my body kind of seizes up and it's like, "Oh God, no." And then no, okay, is that like it's not actually if I like start to work into it, okay, no, I'm fine, but
Mm.
it takes time to get there, right? And it takes like that like rewiring of the brain, like, okay, no, this isn't actually like as bad as it feels right now in this
Yeah,
moment, and it's a process. It takes time to rewire those signals because pain is that it's a memory and it's your body saying, let me protect you. And that could
yeah,
be an emotional thing, that could be mental, it could be physical, it can be all of the above. And so just being really compassionate with ourselves when we are in those moments of, having those sensations, not necessarily of acute pain where like maybe you're getting like you've been cut, but it's like that persistent pain that's
yeah.
lasted for a long time.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I remember going with my nana to a pain management. kind of clinic years ago. I think it was after she'd had a hip done, maybe. And so they were talking to her about kind of when somebody has experienced like quite acute pain, that actually their body becomes more sensitive to pain anyway. So something
Yep.
that might not have hurt in the same way previously would feel acute again. So it'd feel excruciating because the body
Hmm.
is more alert, more kind of susceptible to feeling that pain. Um, and I thought that was fascinating at the time that actually the more pain that you experience, the more sensitive you become to that.
Yeah, and it makes sense, right? Because your body's like, I don't want to go do like I don't want you to have to go through that again. I'm going to warn you ahead of time so
Yeah.
you don't actually get, hurt. Um, but then on the other side, like we're like, but it does hurt. And that's not to say that this pain doesn't exist either. So I think it's really important that we realize that like you're having these pain signals go through, and even though it's not necessarily acute, it is real for you. And
Yeah.
that's, not so like not to tell yourself, well, it's not actually real. I shouldn't be feeling this. Like, no, you're gonna feel it. And that's part of that process of rewiring is allowing, having that mindfulness around it, but then saying, okay, how can I start to like deviate from this? How can I start to
Yeah.
reconnect and tell my body actually like it's okay. I don't have to go into this straight pain response. Because pain is so much more than one thing, right? It can be lots of different things, which is why it's such
Mm,
a powerful thing in our body, and it's that powerful memory, right? It's a
yeah.
physical memory, it's an emotional memory, it's a intellectual memory.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. It's really interesting, isn't it? And that's going to be my word, I think, of the day. It's interesting. Um,
Yes.
should, should we have a little look at taste? Is there any of the other things that was really something that you wanted to think about with touch?
Um, not necessarily, just like kind of going on with what we were talking about before. I think it just like the reflexes, like reflexes are not necessarily data that's sent straight to the brain. It's actually sent straight to the muscles, which is why, right, we have those like instinctive responses, which is why
Mm,
pain is that sort of memory response, right? Because these right reflexes are observing your surroundings, and then they're like, oh no, gotta turn on. I gotta tighten up, I gotta move, I gotta, right? And then from there, that signal then
yeah.
gets sent to the brain. And this is important because then, we respond first to get us out of
Mm,
these possible dangerous
yeah.
situations, right? But when we are, in our day-to-day lives, maybe we don't necessarily need those direct responses or indirect responses as much. Well, we do, but they can get muddled, I guess is my word,
Yeah.
my what I'm trying to say there. So, just kind of thinking about that and understanding that it is your body doing its best to support you and protect
Hmm.
you. And yeah, I just think that that's a really good sort of note to make to understand of why your body and how your body does what it does.
Definitely. Definitely.
But moving on to taste, because taste is also super fascinating.
I know this is amazing that we have 8,000 taste buds on our tongue. And I
Yeah.
don't know why the idea of taste buds just makes me like, ugh, a little bit. Don't know why.
Really? Oh, that's fascinating. I'm like, ooh.
And for me, it gives me the ick.
Something I find really interesting and it makes sense, but children have more taste buds than adults. Which is why, like, certain strong flavors kids might not like as much because they
Yeah.
taste it much stronger than we do. And then as adults, those things kind of go away, and you're like, oh, I need that stronger taste.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that is interesting, isn't it? Just thinking about like how many kids like sprouts, but I
Yeah.
love them.
Yeah.
You won't catch my girls eat. Well, catch them trying it, but they'd maybe like just stick the tongue on it and that'd be about it. But then
Yeah.
Cora loves really spicy food. Like she eats spicier food than I could possibly eat.
Oh, yeah. And enjoys it.
Loves it. Like we was in a restaurant the other couple of weeks ago, and there was a so it was an Indian restaurant, and they had like so we was having like poppadoms, and they had like a chili sauce. And she was like, "Yeah, that's not even hot." And then my dad had quite a spicy sauce, and she was like, "Yeah, granddad, that's not spicy." And it was like a good, like it was a hot sauce. It wasn't it wasn't like a korma. It was like a really spicy sauce. And yeah, it doesn't she doesn't eat. She kind of goes, "Oh, it's a bit spicy."
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
probably burn it
But
off
I
our
think
taste buds.
maybe, no, probably not. But they've developed in different ways. And this is the other another factor that kind of goes along with that. But our taste and smell are unique to us, and they're shaped by our genetics, our environment, and our life experiences. So depending on, maybe like because she is different from you and from Aoife and from Connor, maybe there's like, she had experiences when she was younger that like, was
Mm,
able to kind of inspire her to like these tastes or to, want these flavors more than something else. Right. And it's just really interesting.
mm,
I also think
yeah.
like if we go back a little bit further, like when like babies are in utero, like depending on what the mother eats, right? This can really affect like the preferences of food
Mm,
for the baby. And so if the mom is able to, or the pregnant person is able to like eat a variety of different foods, like the science research has shown that like that is actually really beneficial for the kid later on because they're then much more likely to
yeah.
be open to eating different things. Whereas if like the pregnant person eats a lot of like the same thing over and over again, like the flavors that the child will enjoy might not be as many.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, as you were talking, then it made me think about so when I was pregnant with Cora, so like I obsessed with Nando's. I mean, there's other chicken places available, but Nando's was the place. Like, and
Mm.
and maybe not really spicy, but I would have still eaten like quite spicy like sauces and curry. I remember I loved curry as well, like when I was pregnant. Um, and I think we took Cora to Nando's. She was probably just about to be able to eat food, like to maybe hold a bit of chicken and she was probably 1 years old maybe, and she was eating spicy sauce at 1 years old. Didn't bother her at all. Like loved it, absolutely loved it. When she was 2, she requested to go to Nando's for a birthday dinner at 2 years old. I think you guys might have been over for a
We
birthday as
were.
well
We
when she
were,
had
yeah.
the Peppa Pig cake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And and the guy was singing to her and he was like, "Happy birthday from Nando's."
Yeah.
Um, 2 years old, but then couldn't eat onions on either of them. And they won't touch onions, apart from if it's probably hidden in something, but they won't eat raw onion or anything like that.
I mean, to be fair, I'm not a huge fan of raw onion either. So
No, no. You'd think
I like
Cora
it
would
going
like it.
down, but I just don't like, for me, it's like it kind
Being
of
back.
comes back up later. That's the part I don't enjoy.
Yes, yes. It likes to show again.
It does. It does. And so this is actually talking about onion, makes me think of this next fact that is quite interesting because our sense of smell and our sense of taste is so connected. Um, our brain uses 20% of data coming from the taste buds, but then 80% coming from our smell receptors. So, like most of our taste comes from smell. And because of that, if we're like smelling something that has like a really strong scent, the same time we're eating something, we might not know the difference of what we're eating versus what we're smelling.
Yeah. Well, have you heard? I can't remember what they're called now, but there's a drink, like a bottle, and you put a capsule near where the mouthpiece is, and of all different flavors, so you can get like you like typical like cherry and things like that, lemon and stuff. But you can also get like a Coke flavored or smelling one. And as you're drinking the water, so you put water in it, your brain thinks that you're drinking that drink. So your brain thinks that you're
Yeah.
drinking Coca-Cola or you're drinking lemon juice or cherry juice.
Well, there you go. There you go. Good way to drink more water without putting something else in your body.
Yeah, that's
Fascinating. I had no
amazing,
idea.
isn't
I
it?
hadn't heard of that, but it makes sense.
Yeah, I can't remember what they're called now, but yeah, amazing that you put this like little capsule in and then it releases this smell, and then your brain then thinks that you're drinking that same drink.
I love it. I love it. And on that note, let's move to hearing.
Yeah.
So hearing is fascinating to me. In many ways because my hearing in some ways is really good and in other ways is really bad and I've always kind of wondered about it. Like so like really like small little minute like noises are like super loud to me, whereas if there's like lots of noise then everything kind of gets like drowned out. Like in like a busy places I get overwhelmed by sound and I'm just like and I can't hear anything. Um, and
Yeah.
so that there's something here that I read that you can train your ears to recognize small differences in sounds that are very similar. And this made me think of when I was a kid. Mom and dad, if you're listening to this, when I would love I love to read, and when I was a kid, I also loved to read, and I would be sent up to go to bed, and I would be reading. Now, yes, my parents probably knew this, but just in case, mom and dad, I was reading when I was supposed to be sleeping. And I would listen very carefully to like the little creaking noises of the feet on the steps and like these really like tiny sounds
hmm
so that I could be like, oh, okay, they're coming. So I could turn off the light and then like pretend that I was sleeping and then wait for them to pass or open the door and check in or whatever. And then I turn my light back on and I go back to reading. So I think that that's, I mean, why I'm really good at like listening to those really small sounds when like there's not much noise.
Yeah.
Because I trained my hearing for that. But then when there's lots of noise, I just like, oh, too many sounds.
Yeah, yeah, and I wonder whether you were also able to tell who was coming up the stairs as well. So I
Oh,
bet you
yeah,
could
I
tell it
could.
was mom or dad.
Yep.
So like even training yourself to know whose footsteps it was coming up the stairs.
Yep. And like the weight of like how things, if something was a little bit louder, then it was probably my dad because he's, bigger person than my mom and like my brothers as well, because they tended to move quicker when they went up the steps. Yeah, yeah, no, totally.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. I had that all
Yeah,
down.
yeah. With the girls, so if they're asleep, I can before I even walk in the room, I can tell they're breathing. I can because they sound different breathing, and I can hear that.
Hmm.
The and to other people, it might be they're just asleep snoring. They won't, but I think because I've kind of tuned into being really mindful of being able to hear them breathe as babies, like
Hmm.
of kind of really tuning into that.
Yeah, those mommy spidey senses.
Yeah, yeah, it's weird.
But it's super cool, right? Like it is super fascinating that we can train ourselves to do these things. When I was so in my past life, when I was an English teacher, um, there was an article about this guy. His name is Daniel Kish. Now I had to look his name up because I couldn't remember it, but I did remember
Mhm.
this when we were putting together facts. And he's deaf. And he has trained himself to do echolocation. So, kind of like what a bat does. So, he'll make like little sort of clicking
Mhm.
sounds and he'll hear the reflection of that sound off of things around him and he'll know what's there. And so, he's been able to, like, I mean, he can't see with his eyes, but he's able to kind of map out his surroundings and he's able to go, bike riding and like lots of things like that. And things that you would think, well, as a person who is, sorry, he's not deaf, he's blind, excuse me, I misspoke there. He's, as a blind person, he's able to see the world around him in a way that most of us don't because he uses his ears instead. And he's started this nonprofit called World Access for the Blind. And so they're training other blind people to be able to use this echolocation as well, which I think is just so fascinating that we're able to do that.
How cool is that? That's amazing. That
Yeah.
is so
Yeah, like
amazing.
we're like bats, but not to the same extent.
Mm. I mean, just, being able to, because they often say, don't they, that if somebody does lose one of the senses, their other senses, they they be heightened,
Become
don't they?
heightened.
Become
Mm.
heightened and become more in tune to those senses. And just the fact that we're able to do that is amazing. You know,
Yeah.
it really is like survival, isn't it? Of like our body being able to go back, well, okay, so I'm not able to do that now, but I'm going to be really good at doing this bit.
Yeah. 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 So, if anyone's at home and wants to try it, you could like put like a blindfold on or something and
Yeah.
kind of click and see if you can figure out like how that reflects off of different materials around you, and see if you can make your way around. Maybe do it with someone. Be safe.
Yeah, yeah.
No sharp object.
A good one to do it with is if you put a blindfold on and eat something. That's a really
Mm,
good way of
also,
doing something as
yeah,
well. Or eating something really slowly. So and I might have mentioned this before, I probably
you
definitely
did.
mentioned it
Yeah,
to you, Tess, but eating a raisin and eating that
yeah,
really, really slowly. And we did it in this class once doing CBT, and this girl then turned around and goes, actually, I really liked raisins and now I don't like them. And it's like, how
yeah.
amazing is that?
Yeah. Well, it goes back to what we were talking about before of like when we take this time to really tune into our senses, we start to realize that, you know, how we are actually living. We're not just like moving through with a blindfold on and on
Yeah.
everything. We're on that autopilot, right? We're really
Hmm.
living and we're noticing how we enjoy things, how we don't, how this boosts us up, how maybe this brings us down. And, just with that knowledge, we're able to support ourselves much better because we're able to say, okay, this is maybe I don't want this in my life, right? Like maybe this is something I cut out. Maybe I don't eat raisins anymore.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? But at the same time, it's also like, okay, how can I use this to support us? This is the happy edit. Like, how can I use these things to support my happiness? How can I
Yeah.
bring in more of the things that do bring me, that true contentment, that true
Yeah.
happiness? Um, and and what can maybe I let go of that really doesn't serve me and is just there because
Hmm.
it's there because it's
Yeah.
been there.
Definitely. Definitely. One of the things as well that was really interesting is and I was saying before we recorded that Cora's got like I don't know if it's an app that she's got or it was something on one of the social media platforms that of the frequency of sound that we can hear, and that actually as we get older, that frequency um is less, so we can't hear those higher frequency sounds as well as we get older as well. And Tess, did you say that you've got something that we're going to see if we can play that now to see what we can hear?
Yes, let me just pull it up here. Okay, let's see. Um, I've not actually ever done this on a podcast, so hopefully you guys can hear this. Okay. So we're going to go through different sound levels here. So, on average, human ears can hear between 20 and 20,000 hertz. And that's a child. And then as you get older, after like the age of 24, the normal range goes between 20 and 14 and a half thousand.
Mhm.
And then like the older you get, the more of that range kind of gets reduced. It's just a natural thing that happens. So we're gonna play an 8,000 hertz. And Sarah, let me know if you can hear it. Listeners, can you hear this?
Yeah,
Yeah, you can hear it.
I can hear that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So this,
Do you
in
hear that?
theory, this is a sound that we should all be able to hear no matter what our age. And personally, it's a horrible, horrible sound. All right. So this next one is 12,000 hertz, and you should be able to hear it if you are under 50.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Same. All right. So this next one is 15,000 hertz, and in theory, you should be able to hear it if you're under 25. So Sarah and I,
I'm
let's
gonna hear
see.
this.
Well, maybe we will. Maybe we will. Let's see.
Yes.
Yeah, I could hear that. I could hear that. Whoop, whoop. I am, well, I guess at the time of this being released, I am 35, so 10 years older.
You know what's really interesting? So Rose has sat next to me, but I've got my headphones in. She can obviously hear it in my headphones because she's like going, "What's that noise?"
Yeah, she's like, oh my God, what? What? Yeah, no. So this next one is 17,400 hertz. Now, this was one that maybe people have heard of. It was called the mosquito sound or the mosquito tone. And years ago, teens would have it like programmed on their phones for like their messages or whatnot during class, and the teachers couldn't hear it. Well, most of the teachers couldn't hear it. And then they could get away with like sending messages back and forth to each other. I know this because I had teens in my class do it, and I could hear it at the time. We'll see now. And I'd be like, "Gosh, who's playing that sound again?" I'd get it's horrible. And they'd be like, "No, you shouldn't be able to hear it." I'm like, "I'm not that old." But we'll see
Hmm.
if I am that old now. So let's go. This sound, if is supposedly if you're over the age of 18, you won't be able to hear it. Let's see.
I can hear
Yeah,
that.
I can hear that. I can hear that. Now, full disclosure, when I didn't have my headphones in, I could not hear this, but with my headphone in my ear, I can hear it.
So that might be because it's closer to our ears, maybe. But yeah, I could hear
Yeah.
that. I could hear that.
Yes, I can still hear it even like,
See,
yes,
we're
yes.
18.
Awesome.
Are we able to put the link to this in the show
Yes.
notes?
Yes, I will put the link to
Brilliant.
this in the show notes. Yeah.
Brilliant.
So
Brilliant.
let us know, as we said before at the beginning of this, let us know your favorite facts that you heard. Could you hear these things? Did you try out the little tests that we mentioned? We'd love to hear from you about these facts. I personally, Sarah, had loads of fun discussing these with you. So
Yeah.
thank you for joining me.
No, it has. It's been really, really fun. And I feel like I've got like loads of knowledge now of like lots of different facts. And we kind of said just before the recording it was like, oh, these could be really good pub quiz questions.
Yes.
So everybody, you guys wait. Hope you've been listening because when we come over next week, we might do a little quiz.
Oh, we totally should. We totally should do a quiz with the fam. All right. Well, I hope everyone has a wonderful week. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, if you like this podcast, if you learned some good stuff, please give us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app, especially on Spotify and iTunes. We'd love to hear from you. Come over to Instagram, the.happyedit, and if you ever need any support from either Sarah or myself, please don't hesitate to reach out. You have all that information in the show notes.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
At the Happy Edit podcast, be mindful that the podcast is not in replacement of therapy. If you do need further support, please do contact us on our contact details in the show notes, and we're more than happy to offer further support and guidance and direct you to places like the counselling directory or therapy directories. If you do also need further support, we would also recommend you contacting your primary healthcare provider. Thanks very much for listening. And we'll see you all soon. Bye.